What's up, guys? I'm Ben, and this is Kame Trick. It's the channel that bridges the gap between sim drifting and real-life drifting. Here, we do both, and today we are sliding in the Rust Garage KE70 Toyota Corolla. I think it's like a 1983 model car. As you can tell, there's a big angle kit on this car, and it's also shakotan. It is super low, and you can hear it and see it scraping along on some of these turns where there's a lot of elevation change, which is pretty hilarious. You hear that scrape? That's the sound of this car. Just scraping along on the frame rails, which is pretty legit. It's not the best feeling when it happens in real life, but it is pretty cool. It's from a style standpoint, you know, the car is as low as it could possibly go. We are using the car in its stock settings today, so I haven't touched a thing. The turbo is at 40% power, and we are actually cruising right now in third gear, so I don't even need to imagine what 100% turbo boost would feel like on this car, because this is already significantly more power than this little chassis needs. But it's the kind of power level where you can actually leave the throttle matted most of the time, and it's about right, so that's awesome. Also, gosh, listen to the sound that this car makes. That is so good. That's probably the first thing that really impacts me about driving this mod. It just sounds amazing. These older motors, probably straight piped, so aggressive. This is one of the best sounding mods I've ever driven. And I've only been sim driving again recently. I kind of got out of it for a while. For probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 months. But this has some of the best sounds I've ever heard on a drift mod car. Model-wise, the interior looks accurate. A little too much there. I've never driven one of these in person, but I have seen them drift in a little bit in video. And I've seen a few in person. Gotta get back on my line here. And they do look about like this. It's a nice short wheelbase car, so you can really take some tight lines. And we are here at Drift Playground, which is kind of the quintessential Assetto Corsa drifting track. It's one of my favorite tracks to just goof off at, or to test new cars of the style that I most prefer, because I'm more of a grassroots guy, and I really like the balance and poise of cars that have, you know, 250 to 350 horsepower. Like, enough power to get the job done, but not anything insane. And this car falls nicely into that category. According to the spec sheet, on the launch screen it's pushing around 300 wheel, which is a lot for such a tiny little car. You can see it's running a classic, probably Japanese style bolt-in cage. Interesting carbon fiber look, or maybe that's not carbon fiber, maybe that's like carpet type material on the glove and the door cards. It's really hard to tell. And any car with fender mirrors always gets a little bit of a special vote from me. I thought about putting fender mirrors onto my real life drift car, but unfortunately I just don't think it's a good fit. I think that the more that I think about it, the more that I see it, the S13 is just too new of a chassis for fender mirrors. But you never know. I could change my mind on that. As far as how the vehicle handles, I actually am very pleasantly surprised by the feel of this mod. It flows really nicely. It's fairly predictable. This really isn't a factor in the mod itself, but just the sheer size of the car gives you a lot more forgiving options on this track. So when I think I'm going to be doing a wall ride in like an S chassis, this thing is not actually all that close, and so I've got extra room to get around the track and push out wide if I want to, which is pretty cool. Like so. And one other thing that you might notice is that I haven't touched the e-brake this entire video. This is, I mean, Drift Playground is just a good track to learn how to transition because all the corners are roughly the same speed. You don't have to make a whole lot of adjustments. Everything flows really nicely. But that also tells you something about the quality of this mod, at least, in the very least, in terms of how well it suits me. And I think that it really feels great. My only problem, if you could call it that, is the fact that it's, and I think it's the car, I don't think it's the track, it's so low to the ground that it actually scrapes, essentially it feels like it drags frame on basically any elevation change. So that makes it a little bit of a pain to slide because you do feel it bouncing along. It doesn't mess with the traction balance of the vehicle too much though. And you can see, yeah, you can actually see my tire marks there are sort of dash lines. And that's bound to be from the fact that the car is scraping like that. In the external replay that I'll put up as well, you'll be able to see actual chunks of dirt from Assetto where it thinks that I'm, I guess, hitting grass, shooting up occasionally. And you will also be able to see sparks from Custom Shaders Patch, which is a mod that I highly recommend you install if you haven't already. That's also how we've got this sort of dusk effect with the night lighting. Shaders Patch is a great tool that I recommend that you check out. I do have a tutorial video series on it, if that's something that you're interested in. But yeah, I quite like this mod, and I strongly suspect that you'll be able to see it pretty soon in my Friday night live streams. And if you didn't know, I do a live stream every Friday night at 9 p.m. Central Time, so if you're in the United States, please check that out. They are always public, so in addition to watching, if you're a fan, if you have your own rig and you would like to hop in tandem with me and the crew, you are certainly invited. We do typically fill the server up, so you might find that it's difficult to get a slot, but if you see one, feel free to hop in and shred with us. And likewise, we have a Discord with over 1,000 drifters, both sim drifters and real-life drivers. So if you want to get into either of those things, do hop in and join us. There's a link in the video description. We would love to have you as a part of our growing drifting community. Yeah, this feels so good. I'm really enjoying this car. Whew. Thought I was going to get a little wall tap there for a second. Oh, there it is. Let's take a minute and talk about the history of the KE70 Corolla. The E70 was the 4th generation Corolla and was released in March of 1979. By the time the 4th gen was released, it was already a popular platform, and Toyota celebrated the construction of their 1 millionth Corolla in 1983. There was even a special 1 million edition released in Japan. The KE70 used a solid axle and featured an enhanced rear suspension design using a coil spring 5-link rear end with a panhard rod.
It was also the first Corolla to offer power steering as an option. In the engine department, the KE70 had several options, including the 1.3-liter 4K and 1.8-liter 3T pushrod engines. But in 1983, a significant performance increase was offered in the form of the single overhead cam 1.6-liter 4AC engine. If this engine code sounds familiar, it's because it's the predecessor to the renowned 4AG engine, powering the AE86 or Hachiroku of motorsports and Initial D fame. The KE70 has some motorsports heritage of its own, however, as a Toyota Corolla GT won the 1982 British Saloon Car Championship, piloted by Win Percy. All these historic engine options are well and good, but the Rus 180 Garage mod cuts right to the bleeding edge of 4A engine performance. This mod car is powered by a turbocharged 20-valve 4A GTE producing 306 horsepower and 242 foot-pounds of torque. In a lightweight chassis weighing in at just over 1,725 pounds, this engine has little trouble spinning the tires. It's equipped with a 5-speed transmission with tight gears, so you'll spend most of your time in third and fourth, where you'd normally be using second and third in more traditional drift cars like the Nissan S chassis. Curiously, while it claims to be a turbocharged car, I didn't notice any blow-off or compressor whine noises. It just sounds like a straight piped 20-valve, which isn't really a bad thing. This is an older mod. From what I can tell, the most recent version was released as a beta in November 2017. I'm not sure if this creator is still active because the last post to their Facebook page were in 2018, but you can find their page at facebook.com/Rus180Garage. For you Japanese nerds, this car has license plates for Tama City, which is located in western Tokyo. Another interesting note about the KE70 included a rumor among the enthusiast community at the time that renowned Italian car designer Giorgetto Giugiaro may have led the car design based upon certain cues used on the body and interior. Considering some of Giugiaro's other unique designs, including the Volkswagen Golf, Sirocco, and DeLorean DMC-12, you might be able to see how people saw some similarities. Ultimately, however, this was just a rumor, although I suspect Toyota's designers may have drawn at least some inspiration from the influential Italian. Another quirk, the GT model featured a special OK monitor, which had warning lights for burned out brake lights, low battery fluid, oil, and coolant levels. Pretty impressive for 80s technology. Curiously, the OK monitor was only an option on the GT model. Therefore, on most cars, in its place was a simple plastic cover with the Corolla logo, leaving the majority of owners to wonder just what goes there.
I enjoy shredding in this thing. I could just keep driving in order to hear that lovely engine sound. If you haven't already, please hit the like button, consider subscribing, come out to our Friday night live streams, and have a good one. Peace.